Warm welcome to Spiritual Clinic. We have been thinking about spiritual health. We are using physical health as a window to understand our spiritual health. We talked about tongue, how it is an indicator of our spiritual life. And we talked about ear, what we hear, what we selectively hear, that determines our spiritual health. Today we are going to talk about eyes, and we are going to have an eye checkup in our spiritual clinic. One of my friends, when he was asked to lead a singing for the congregation, he said like this: "Let us all close our eyes and sing, 'Open my eyes, Lord.'" This is like a contradiction. This is what many times we close our eyes to God and what He is doing. We need to pray that, "Lord, open my eyes so that I can see how you are working, how you are acting. Let me see your fingerprints and let me see your footprints." And this is how we need to pray, "Open my eyes, Lord." When my wife was in a hospital a few years back, she was in ICU, she was so discouraged, she felt she's sinking, and this is how God opened her eyes to see. When the nurse in the ICU, she just opened the screen in the window, the sunlight flashed inside. At that moment, my wife had a verse flashed in her mind. This is a verse, Malachi 4:2. "But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. You shall go out leaping like calves from the stall." The Son of Righteousness with healing in its wings. So when she heard this verse, the eyes of her understanding opened, her faith quickened, and she called me and said, "Don't worry, I will come out healthy and well." So that is a moment she experienced a divine enlightenment, opening up her eyes to see what God is going to do in her life. So it is important that we pray, "Lord, open my eyes." And how are we seeing? How are we perceiving? And we are going to talk about, it is not simply seeing, but how are we perceiving? How are we seeing with spiritual eyes? I would like to call it sunglass. It is not S-U-N, S-O-N, sunglass. How are we going to wear the glass of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and see things through His eyes, through His perspective, so that we get a clear, biblical, godly, heavenly perspective about everything around us. And Psalm 119:18 says, "Open my eyes that I may see wonderful things in your law." And when our eyes are opened, when eyes are clean, and we will be able to see wonderful things God is doing in and through our life. Let me read a verse for you, Matthew chapter 6 verse 22. "The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness?" Here it talks about your eye is healthy and your eye is bad. A healthy eye, a bad eye. What are the differences? Here Jesus is not simply talking about the physical eyes. He's talking about the eye of our heart and how we see and perceive things. And that's what we read. We do not simply walk by sight. We walk by faith. We see what is not seen. We see beyond what is seen. All of you know about Helen Keller, who had a multiple disability, but she overcame and she became a very highly influential person in the history of America. So once somebody asked her, she was blind, and somebody asked her, "What is worse than being born blind?" She immediately replied, "Having sight but no vision." We need to have a vision, not simply sight. We need to have the inner eyes. We need to have the eyes of our heart opened to see what God is doing. What is the spiritual reality of life? Not simply circumstances, but how the spiritual law are at work, how God is at work. What is the unseen reality that we are part of? That is what is spiritual life is all about. Let me share with you, there are 4 things I want to share with you, the way we see things and how it is connected to our spiritual health. Number 1 is seeing, perceiving and believing. There is a close connection between how do we see and how do we perceive and how do we form our belief. And our belief is based on the way we see. Somebody said like this, leaders see what others see. Leaders see before they see, and even leaders see beyond what others see. That is the ability, a vision, seeing beyond, seeing behind, seeing things what nobody else see, how God is at work, how the spiritual reality functions. That is very important. Hebrew 11:1 says, faith is assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. So the eyes that we are talking about, it's not simply a physical eye, it is ability to see beyond, how God is at work, seeing what is not seen, seeing what natural eyes cannot see. And this is what we see in Elisha's life. Elisha was a prophet, and he was in confrontation with an enemy, and there was a big battleground, and so many the army is just around him. And there is a time his servant says, what are we going to do? And we are caught up like this. And then he prays, Lord, open his eyes to see. When God opened the eyes of his servant, he was able to see the chariots of fire. Suddenly he was able to see the spiritual reality, the angels encamped around them, and God powerfully working on behalf of them. That is how the eyes of our faith got open. We live not by sight but by faith. How do we see? How do we see the challenges? How do we see the problems? How do we see the situations around us? We need to have the sunglass to see things. Don't simply see the way the world sees. Don't simply see the way others see. See with a spiritual eyes. And Saul saw Goliath and said, he is too big to hit. And the same way, David saw Goliath and saw he is too big to miss. That is a spiritual way of thinking. This is how he was able to see with the power of God. And you saw the spies, when there were spies were sent into the promised land to spy and find out how the enemies are and how are we able to conquer them. The spies went and came back and said, they also saw the same thing. Caleb also saw the same thing, but their reports were different. We see the same thing but have a different perception. The spies saw the same thing but had a negative perception. They said, we can't be victorious, we will be defeated. And Caleb saw the same thing and he said, let us go and conquer. This is what I mean by seeing from the eye of God. So there is a direct link between how we see things in our life, whatever may be the challenges, situations. Ask God to open your eyes to see how He is at work. The second thing I want to share with you is seeing the way we see and form perception. Let me read a verse. Why do you, in Matthew we read regarding judgment, Jesus talks about don't judge and you will be judged. The same context he talks about, why do you see the plank in your brother's eye when all the way you have a log in your own eyes? First remove the log from your eyes and so that you can see clearly what is in the eye of your brother. So he talks about there are something in our eyes which is we are not able to see clearly. We are not able to see what is happening inside us. We are not able to see our own condition, but we are trying to see in others' condition. That's where God says, remove the log from your eyes. So what is a log in our eyes that making us to make judgment, or we are in a fault finding mode, or we just go around making judgment about people? The haughty eyes that we have. This is what God is talking about. Remove the log from your eyes. The way we perceive things. That's what they talk about tunnel vision. We are not able to see the whole thing. We just simply see the fault. We see the problems. We see only the challenges. We are simply problem focused and fault finding mode. And we are in a judgmental attitude. God says, remove the log. See clearly. See how God is gracious to all people and God of a second chance. And do not be judgmental. And how the judgmental attitude and the way we see is connected. We need to have an eye checkup and remove the log from our eyes.